Hey there, friend. Go on and have a seat. Porch is clean, coffee's hot, and the road out front is just for decoration tonight. We're not going anywhere. We're talking about the kind of driving you only do when you don't have a choice. You ever notice how different a road feels after midnight? In the daytime, it's just part of your commute. Potholes, billboards, idiots on their phones. But at night, when the businesses go dark and the traffic dries up, it feels like the world forgot to turn itself off and left just you and the asphalt running through nowhere. That's the road this story lives on. Back then, I was working a graveyard shift at a warehouse out past the edge of town. You know the kind of place. Corrugated metal, too many sodium lights, and a parking lot that looks like nobody's washed it since the 80s. It paid a little extra per hour to pretend it didn't bother me that outside my loading dock was just black fields and a 2-lane highway stretching off into nothing. Every evening I'd start right here, on a porch a lot like this one. Quiet little street, 3 houses in a row, one dog that barked at everything, and that one neighbor who left their porch light on no matter how late it got. I'd lock the door, pat my pockets for keys and wallet, tell myself tonight would be like every other night. Most nights it was. The route never changed. Out of the neighborhood, onto the main drag, then past the last gas station with a working sign, and finally that long, lonely stretch of highway between town and the industrial park. By the time I hit the open road, the sun was gone, the radio was down low, and the only light in my car was whatever my dashboard decided to glow. If you've ever driven tired, you know how it gets. Your mind starts chewing on little things to stay awake. Old arguments, unpaid bills, that one stupid thing you said 5 years ago and never quite forgot. The road hums under your tires, the white lines slide past like they're on a conveyor belt, and the darkness just outside the reach of your headlights feels like it's listening. That's where I was the first night I saw the headlights. It was a Tuesday, which is a miserable night to be doing anything, much less driving to a job you already hate. The radio host kept reminding me it was only the start of the week, like that was supposed to cheer anybody up. I turned him down to a mumble and focused on the yellow line. I was maybe 20 minutes from the warehouse when they showed up. 2 pale dots in the rearview mirror, way back down the road. Just cresting a little rise I knew by heart. That was normal enough. You don't get a lot of traffic out there after midnight, but you do get some. The other poor souls on the same night shift carousel. At first, I didn't care. I checked my speed, right around 65, and settled back into the lane. If they wanted to pass, they could pass. If they wanted to hang back, fine. I wasn't in the mood to race anybody but the clock. Except they didn't do either. Those lights just slid into place behind me. Not creeping up, not fading in. 1 second they were distant, the next they were there. Locked at this polite little distance that felt measured, far enough that I couldn't see the car, close enough that I couldn't forget they were there. You know how you can usually tell what's behind you just from the way the lights sit? Trucks are high and wide, compacts sit low, old junkers have that jaundiced yellow tint. These were just white, too white maybe. Clean, even on a filthy back road. They didn't bounce or jitter with the pavement, they just floated along, centered in my mirror like part of the dash. I told myself I was being dramatic. Long day, too much coffee, not enough real food. I'd probably just spaced out and not noticed when they caught up. So I did what you do. I watched them without letting myself look like I was watching them. The road curved left. My hands moved on the wheel. The headlights behind me arced with the same smooth, slow grace, never bobbing, never getting closer or further. We took that bend like we were parts of the same machine. I adjusted my speed, just a hair, up to 70, down to 60, back to 65. It's the kind of thing that usually shakes somebody off their cruise control without them thinking about it. But every time the needle moved, those lights moved with it, staying nailed to that same exact spot behind me. That's when a little cold spot opened up just under my ribs. Now, I grew up on ghost stories. My grandmother used to tell me about women in white on back roads and headless truckers and all that good late-night nonsense. You hear enough of those tales as a kid, and a part of you spends the rest of your life trying not to remember them at the wrong time, like, say, when you are very alone on a black highway and someone you can't quite see is matching you mile for mile. I tried logic first. Maybe it was just another warehouse worker who recognized my car. Maybe it was a cop running my plates without making a fuss. Maybe I'd just gotten so used to driving alone that any company felt wrong. I stacked those maybes up like sandbags between me and that little cold spot in my gut. Didn't do much good. My exit came up sooner than I wanted it to. This tall green sign rising out of the dark with the name of the industrial park like a punchline. Normally, when you peel off onto that ramp, you lose whoever's behind you. Folks headed somewhere nicer, or at least brighter. But as I flicked on my blinker and drifted toward the off-ramp lane, I watched those lights. They came with me. No hesitation, no wobble. Just a smooth slide from highway to ramp, like we'd rehearsed it. The concrete walls rose up on either side of us, gray and stained, closing out what little sky there was. My headlights sprayed yellow on bare concrete ahead. Behind me, those perfect white circles rode the curve like they were painted on. By then, I had stopped telling myself stories. Whoever was back there wasn't just another tired driver zoning out. They were paying attention. To me. At the bottom of the ramp, there's a four-way light. Straight takes you past some shuttered factories, left loops you back toward town, and right heads to the warehouse and a whole lot of empty. I rolled to a stop on the red, the engine ticking softly in the quiet, and for the first time that night, my car felt very small. The headlights pulled up behind me and settled in. I squinted into the rear view, trying to make out a shape. Up close like that, you should be able to see something. Grill, hood, mirrors, the pale oval of a face over a steering wheel. All I got was glare. Two flat discs of light burning away any detail behind them. I flipped a little tab on the mirror to cut the brightness, and the whole world behind me turned murky and green except for those lights, still sharp as ever. My light turned green. I could have gone straight. I could have turned left, gone back to town, made a joke to the boss about a flat tire and bought myself a different night. But instead, like an idiot, like a creature of habit, I turned right toward the warehouse. The headlights followed. Out here, the road narrows and the streetlights thin out until you're driving through big square shadows that used to be businesses, and now are just rumors of them. I knew every crack in that pavement, every busted section of guardrail, every patch of weeds that had bullied their way up through the shoulder. Somewhere tucked into all of that, I started to feel like I had picked up a second shadow, one that only showed up in the mirror. You know that point on a bad night where your brain quietly decides something is wrong, but your body keeps pretending everything is fine? That's where I was, hands steady on the wheel, eyes scanning the road, jaw working on nothing, and that little cold knot under my ribs getting heavier with every mile. I told myself if they turned into the warehouse lot behind me, I'd deal with it. Maybe it was a coworker with a question. Maybe it was security. Maybe it was nothing at all. But if those lights followed me all the way to the gate, I'd get out, walk back, and see who decided my bumper was their new favorite view. The warehouse came into sight, a low black shape against a darker sky, ringed with a few weak yellow lamps. I flipped on my blinker and eased into the turn lane, heart thudding a little harder than the situation probably deserved. My eyes went to the mirror one more time. The headlights were gone. When the stream of light returned to a steady stare, it seemed like they were closer than before, maybe by a half a car length. The older Cadillac tail fin, watch, or something like that. I swear I could just make it out on the Gullah Bloom mentality. I started realizing this wasn't some road rage idiot. It seemed like something more pernicious. After about another 6 awkward miles, I dropped 25 below the limit and slowed all the way down to 22, even in a time known for health coaches and masks. That's too slow. I tried nudging the lights ahead of me. I tried singing along to way out of tune rock songs on the radio. I even took the next turn, a rare turn, in massive fear, without signaling, sharp enough that my coffee sloshed out of its lid and burned my hand. After that, I stopped trying to get away. The first trick I tried was switching the radio to some soul channel. Maybe something fanciful helped the gas I needed to burn the hawk in my soul. There were a lot of bad choices and worse nights on that channel, until the song skipped. Not like a normal radio cut where it fades into snow or the DJ breaks in. 1 second a man was dragging a note out of his throat. The next, that note bent, warped, and stretched into pure interference. It was the exact sound you hear when you spin the dial too fast between stations. Sharp, angry hiss with bits of voices chopped up inside it. I snapped my eyes from the road to the console. The station numbers hadn't changed. The reception bar still strong. Nothing to explain why the music had been replaced with the sound of the world grinding its teeth. Behind me, the lights burned a little brighter. I reached out and twisted the volume down. The static dropped to a whisper, then nothing. The car felt weirdly empty without it, like I had just unplugged the only other living thing in there. "Okay," I said quietly. "You win the soundtrack." The exit loomed ahead, green sign ghost pale in my high beams. This time when I hit my blinker, it felt less like a habit and more like a test. I kept my eyes on the mirror, waiting to see if my shadow would peel away and continue on, leaving me alone with a silly story about a couple of weird nights. It didn't. Down the ramp we went, concrete rising on either side, headlights painting harsh shapes on the stained walls. My car hummed and clicked and did all the honest little things an old engine does. Whatever was behind me glided. No engine note, no sense of mass, just light moving through space where a vehicle ought to be. The light at the bottom was red again. Of course it was. I rolled to a stop, and against my better judgment, let my eyes really go to the rear view. Up close that way, Those beams were almost painful, pouring into my cabin like someone had peeled the lid off a flashlight and set it right against my retinas. I could see tiny starbursts where they hit the glass, little imperfections in the mirror glittering under the strain. But I still couldn't see a car. No outline of a hood, no chrome, no license plate catching the spill of my own taillights. Just light. The light turned green, and something in me balked at turning right again. On impulse, I flicked the wheel left instead, heading back to town. The tires chirped a little on the turn, surprised. For a sweet, foolish second, I thought I'd done it. I'd broken whatever pattern I'd fallen into. Then the glow slid across the intersection after me. No pause, no moment of indecision, just those same 2 points of white dropping into place behind my bumper, as though the road only had one direction it would allow us to go. "Yeah," I said, whisper, throat dry. "I see you." I wish I could tell you that realization made me brave. Mostly it just made me tired, in a different way. I sat there on that hill with my hands on the wheel, engine dead, lights off, those two suns burning through my rear window, and I did what people always do when they meet something they don't understand. I pretended it wasn't happening. Key back in the ignition, engine coughing to life, headlights on, dome light off, seatbelt tugged a notch tighter like that was going to keep anything out that really wanted in. I put it in drive and rolled forward toward the tee, eyes on the empty road ahead. Didn't look in the mirror. Didn't have to. I could feel the glow on the back of my neck like a pair of hands. At the intersection, I turned right, looping back toward the main drag instead of trying to get clever again. Whatever game we were playing, I was done trying to outmaneuver something that didn't seem to care about the rules of distance and direction. By the time I pulled into the warehouse that night, the sky over the loading docks was already turning that faint, ugly gray that means you've stolen tomorrow's energy to pay for today's. I parked crooked, climbed out, and only then let myself really turn around. Nothing on the road. No car pulling away, no tail lights shrinking into the distance, just an empty stretch of asphalt and a line of tired street lamps buzzing over it like they'd seen this kind of thing before and were bored. The shift itself is a blur in my memory now. Boxes, forklifts, the supervisor's voice droning through safety reminders nobody listened to. People talked to me, I know they did, but whatever answers I gave came from somewhere on autopilot, while the rest of me sat in that car on that hill, replaying the blink of those lights over and over. Around 3 a.m, I made the mistake of telling someone. It was one of the older guys, Dale, the kind of man who looks like he came with the building. He caught me staring off down the loading bay like I expected to see headlights roll right into the building and asked if I was all there tonight, son. I laughed it off at first. Said something about not sleeping well, said the road out here was getting to me. Then, because human beings are wired to test each other's sense of the possible, I told him about the lights. Not all of it. Not the way they moved or the way the radio had gone wrong, just the bare bones. He didn't laugh. Dale just went very still, like somebody had opened a window behind his eyes and let cold air in. He looked past me, out at the dark beyond the loading door, and for a second I thought he wasn't going to say anything at all. "You take 41 all the way in?" he asked finally. "Yeah," I said. "Why?" He licked his lips. "Ever notice the crosses? Out on that highway there are little white memorials tucked into the weeds every mile or so. Flowers, faded photos in plastic, sometimes a toy left to gather dust and rain. I'd seen 'em, sure. Everybody had. We all do that thing where we glance, feel a twinge of borrowed grief, and then tuck it away so we can keep going 65 without thinking too hard about it. A lot of bad wrecks out there," I said. "The road's old. People drive like they're late to their own funerals." He shook his head. "Road ain't that bad," he said quietly. "Not by itself." I waited. He dragged a hand down his face, suddenly looking 10 years older. He said, "Back when I started here, there was this kid, new hire like you, drove nights like you, kept talking about a car that'd ride his bumper all the way in and then just vanish by the time he parked. We all told him to lay off the energy drinks." A chill walked its fingers up my spine. "What happened to him?" I asked, though a part of me already knew I didn't want the answer. He said, "Didn't show up one morning. We figured he'd quit. 2 days later, they found what was left of his car in the ditch out past mile marker 23. No skid marks, no sign he'd even touched the brake. Looked like he just turned the wheel and let go. He met my eyes then, really met my eyes. You said your lights came back, night after night. Yeah, I said, same spot, same distance. He nodded like that fit something he'd been afraid of for a long time. He said, don't look at 'em too long, and don't you ever stop for 'em again. If they want you in that ditch, make 'em work for it. Then he walked away and went back to yelling at someone about a pallet jack. Conversation over. You'd think that warning would have given me some kind of shield. If anything, it did the opposite. It gave the thing a story, and stories are a lot harder to ignore than random weirdness. The drive home that morning was mercifully empty. Sun just starting to bleed into the sky, birds half awake in the trees, no headlights but mine. By the time I pulled back onto my little street and killed the engine in front of my house, the night felt like... I wish I could tell you that realization made me brave. Mostly, it just made me tired in a different way. I sat there on that hill with my hands on the wheel, engine dead, lights off, those 2 suns burning through my rear window, and I did what people always do when they meet something they don't understand. I pretended it wasn't happening. Key back in the ignition, engine coughing to life, headlights on, dome light off, seatbelt tugged a notch tighter like that was going to keep anything out that really wanted in. I put it in drive and rolled forward toward the T, eyes on the empty road ahead. Didn't look in the mirror. Didn't have to. I could feel the glow on the back of my neck like a pair of hands. At the intersection, I turned right, looping back toward the main drag instead of trying to get clever again. Whatever game we were playing, I was done trying to outmaneuver something that didn't seem to care about the rules of distance and direction. By the time I pulled into the warehouse lot that night, the sky over the loading box was already turning that faint, ugly gray that means you've stolen tomorrow's energy to pay for today. I parked crooked, climbed out, and only then let myself really turn around. Nothing on the road. No car pulling away, no tail lights shrinking into the distance, just an empty stretch of asphalt and a line of tired street lamps buzzing over it like they'd seen this kind of thing before and were bored. The shift itself is a blur in my memory now. Boxes, forklifts, the supervisor's voice droning through safety reminders nobody listened to. People talked to me, I know they did, but whatever answers I gave came from somewhere on autopilot, while the rest of me sat in that car on that hill, replaying the blink of those lights over and over. Around 3 a.m, I made the mistake of telling someone. It was one of the older guys, Dale, the kind of man who looks like he came with the building. He caught me staring off down the loading bay like I expected to see headlights roll right into the building and asked if I was all there tonight, son. I laughed it off at first, said something about not sleeping well, said the road out here was getting to me. Then, because human beings are wired to test each other's sense of the possible, I told him about the lights. Not all of it. Not the way they moved or the way the radio had gone wrong, just the bare bones. He didn't laugh. Dale just went very still, like somebody had opened a window behind his eyes and let cold air in. He looked past me, out at the dark beyond the loading door, and for a second I thought he wasn't going to say anything at all. "You take 41 all the way in?" he asked finally. Yeah, I said. Why? He licked his lips. Ever notice the crosses? Out on that highway there are little white memorials tucked in the weeds every mile or so. Flowers, faded photos in plastic, sometimes a toy left to gather dust and rain. I'd seen them, sure. Everybody had. We all do that thing where we glance, feel a twinge of borrowed grief, and then tuck it away so we can keep going 65 without thinking too hard about it. A lot of bad wrecks out there, I said. Roads old. People drive like they're late to their own funerals. Dale shook his head. Road ain't that bad, he said quietly. Not by itself. I waited. He dragged a hand down his face. I started talking back. If you're going to follow me, I said, voice too loud in the quiet car, you might as well say something. Nothing clever. Nothing brave. Just words to fill the space so I didn't have to listen to my own heart try to kick its way out of my ribs. The murmur in the radio didn't stop. It didn't get louder either. It just noticed me. That's the only way I can describe it. The tone of it shifted, like a conversation in the next room you suddenly realize is about you. I know you're there, I said. You've made your point. The road ahead stayed empty. A straight throat swallowing my high beams. In the mirror, those two pale circles hung right where they liked to live, a little higher than before, a little more wrong. Why me? I asked. There's plenty of folks out here. Go bother someone who isn't already late for work. Somewhere under the static, something chuckled. Not a human laugh, too flat, too steady, like someone had recorded the sound of mirth and was playing it back at the wrong speed. The words started to separate themselves. At first, they came in fragments, catching on bits of interference. You see us. You keep going. You don't look away? I gripped the wheel so hard my fingers ached. The car drifted half an inch toward the shoulder before I yanked it back. Gravel hissed under the tires and then fell away again. Not happening, I whispered. Find another ride. Behind me, the headlights pulsed. Just a tiny swell and fade like a heartbeat. You already did, the voices said. You turned and stepped out. You opened the door. They were right. I hated that they were right. I had gotten out. I had walked one step closer. I had given whatever this was a moment where there was no glass, no roof, no frame between us. That was a mistake, I said. Won't happen again. Silence folded around me like a blanket for a long, long stretch of road. The kind of silence where you start to wonder if you only imagined the last 5 minutes. The headlights stayed put, though, unwavering, painting the inside of my little car in ghost white. Mile markers slid past. I blew past my usual exit without even realizing it, too focused on the mirror until the green sign was already shrinking in it. Missed your turn, the many voice said, almost conversationally. I'll take the next one. Road's full of exits. You're not the only thing out here. You think they're for you. You think you're choosing. Up ahead, another sign glowed out of the dark, promising services that didn't really exist anymore. Gas, food, lodging. I blinked, shook myself, and clicked on my blinker. This time, when I eased onto the ramp, the world felt thinner. The concrete walls on either side were streaked and wet in a way that didn't match the weather. My headlights showed long claw marks in the grime, reaching down, all at the same angle, as if dozens of hands had tried to grab hold of something and been dragged along. The headlights behind me followed, of course. At the bottom of the ramp, the services turned out to be a single half-dead truck stop, a squat building with a few pumps out front and a neon sign that said open but didn't look like it believed itself. A handful of semis slept in the far lot, hulking shapes under sodium lamps. People, light, cameras. All the things the dark doesn't like. You're not invited, I said under my breath, and cranked the wheel toward the station. The gravel lot crunched under my tires as I pulled in under the brightest canopy light I could find. It threw everything into harsh, ugly clarity. Bugs orbiting the bulbs, oil stains on the concrete, dead moths stuck in spider webs on the pump handles. I parked, killed the engine, and for the first time since this started, I forced myself to look straight into the mirror as I did it. The headlights had stopped at the edge of the lot. No slow roll in, no casual glide up behind me. They just sat there, exactly where asphalt became property, like someone had painted them on the air and then decided they'd done enough. The line where the station lights spilled onto the highway made a faint shimmering border, and they hovered just beyond it. You don't like company, I said, voice shaking. You like empty roads. The radio crackled. We like what's left, the voices said. We like the ones who drive until there's nothing else. We like the quiet. Well, I said, opening my door with hands that only fumbled a little. Tonight, you can like it without me. The dome light flared. Country music leaked faintly from the station speakers. I stepped out into a world that, for all its grime and hollowness, was still solid. The concrete was under my boots. The fluorescent buzz was in my ears, and when the chill night wind hit my face, it smelled like diesel and burnt coffee instead of wet pavement and wading ditches. I walked toward the store like a man on stilts, knees unsteady, expecting at any moment to feel that light slam into my back. It didn't. Inside, the clerk barely glanced up from his phone. Bright aisles of snacks and cheap tools and faded travel toys stretched off into the kind of banality you don't appreciate until something tries to peel you out of it. I heard myself ask as I set a soda and a pack of gum on the counter. You guys get a lot of wrecks on 41? Too many. Why? Ever hear about weird headlights out there? Like
Ones that don't belong to a car? That made him look. Just for a second. Just long enough for me to see the flicker of recognition before he shrugged it off. Don't drive tired. That road will make you see all kinds of things. Yeah, I said. Yeah, I bet it will. I lingered longer than I needed to. Used the bathroom, counted the tiles on the floor, read the safety notices on the bulletin board like they were gripping literature. Anything to give the night time to forget about me. When I finally stepped back outside, the highway beyond the lot looked the way a highway should. Anonymous, distant, indifferent. No lights waiting at the edge, no glow sitting still where no car was. I almost believed I'd beaten it. The drive to the warehouse from the truck stop is short. 10, maybe 15 minutes tops. I took it slow, staying near other vehicles whenever I could, hugging the glow of their taillights like someone hiding under a stranger's umbrella. No followers, no phantom beams. Just me and the honest glare of borrowed headlights that belonged to machines with drivers and plates and repair histories. When I pulled into the warehouse, I parked in a different spot, under the brightest